Hey, it's Tina Forsyth here. I have a very serious question for you today. Do you have contracts signed, written and signed contracts in place with your business, with your various business relationships? And if you don't, I'm here to give you a little loving slap on the wrist, right? I actually wasn't planning on talking about this today. I had a whole other topic that I was thinking about for today's video. But this has come up a couple of times in the past few days, and it's so important to talk about, in my opinion. Why are contracts important? You know, first and foremost, I actually really prefer the word agreement instead of contracts, right? Because this is something that shifted for me a few years ago. I never used to have written contracts in place in my business, right? When I worked as an online business manager for many, many years, I never had a written agreement with my clients. I never had a written agreement with team members or with people that I was doing stuff with, right? With JV partners or, you know, people I was doing various programs and various things with, right? I never did. I never did. And, you know, knock on wood, essentially, I was lucky. It never came back to haunt me. You know, and reason being is that in my mind, it was kind of like, oh, you know, I have a good relationship with this person. You know, we like each other, we know each other, we trust each other, it doesn't matter. Or, you know what, contracts, legalese, all that crazy stuff, I just don't want to go there. It's just not something I want to deal with, you know, or just, you know, oh, we talked about it, so it should be fine. You know, I kind of had all these different reasons, if you will, as to why I did not have written agreements in place in my business, right? And things really shifted for me a few years ago. In particular, when I heard Alexis Martin Neely talk about this as part of her Lift program. And what really shifted for me is the fact that this is about an agreement. You know, and when you have a written agreement in place, when you have a written contract in place, what you're doing is you're actually honoring the relationship that you have with that other person in your business. And see, here's the thing. This applies with any type of business relationship. It could be your clients. It could be with your team members. It could be with, you know, joint venture partners or strategic alliances, or anytime you are doing something with somebody where there's an exchange, you know, an exchange of value, an exchange of time and energy, an exchange of money and all that kind of fun stuff, right? You need to have written agreements in place. And like I said, I get where and how we don't, right? For many, many years, I never did have these written agreements in place. But I remember when Alexis talked about this a few years ago, you know, just that idea of the fact that this is about being in agreement. What you're doing when you have a written agreement in place is you're saying, I honor this relationship and I want to make sure that we are set up for success on both sides, right? A written agreement allows you to have clarity between the two of you so that you are clear on here's what I'm bringing to the table. The other person's clear on what they're bringing to the table. You are clear on any exchange of time, energy, money that's going to happen between the two of you. You know what's expected on both sides, and that both of you are on the same page, right? That both of you are on the same page. This prevents confusion, disagreement, and all kinds of things down the road, right? Because if you don't put written agreements in place, you really run the risk of things falling apart down the road. And here's the thing, I know of scenarios, I'm sure you've heard of them too, you might have even experienced this yourself, where people had a verbal agreement with somebody, where you talked about, you know what, we're gonna do this together, and you're gonna do this for me, and I'll pay you this amount, or whatever it is, and then down the road, you know, that didn't happen, because one person remembered it this way, and the other person remembered it this way. Right? And this is just human nature, you guys. I don't think people are necessarily trying to be like sneaky or whatever when it comes to stuff like this. It's just when you talk about something and you come to agreement verbally about something, you need to take it that step further. Make it a written agreement. Have it something that both of you review and sign, right? So that you've officially connected that relationship, right? You don't want to have these things blow up in your face down the road. That's never fun. You know, that's never fun. And when you do this process up front, it also allows you to see certain areas that might potentially become issues down the road. You know, you might look to put a written agreement together, the other person might review it and be like, oh, what about this piece? We forgot to talk about this piece, or I'm not sure what this means. Let's talk about this a little bit further, right? So you get to kind of dig in to certain areas, if you will, to make sure that you're covering that stuff up front as much as possible as compared to having it maybe blow up in your face down the road. Right? And here's the thing, you know, I don't care what type of business you have, you need to have these agreements in place with your clients. You know, I have agreements in place for all my training programs. When somebody joins a training program, they either, for some of our like more straightforward programs, there's an agreement in the registration process that essentially says, you know, part of the terms of service and such, where it's like, by joining this program, you know that this is my material. It's to protect me and them. You know, this is my material, my copyrighted material. You can't go and teach it somewhere else, for example, right? In some of our higher end coaching programs and training programs and mentoring programs, it is a literally signed agreement that we use through EchoSign, by the way. We all sign it digitally and online. It's not necessarily a faxing thing. But there literally is an agreement where it's like, that outlines the expectations. Here's what I'm going to deliver to you as part of this program, right? Here's what you pay for that in return. Here's what that payment plan looks like. Here's the amount of money and when it's due and all that kind of fun stuff. Here's when I'm going to deliver this, and that to you. You know, you don't want to have experiences with your clients where they thought they were getting a certain thing and you thought it was something else, and it comes to a point where they're not happy. And you're sitting there going, but, you know, I thought we talked about this, or whatever it is, right? When you have a written agreement up front, you can refer back to that and say, hey, listen, here's the agreement that we came to. Here's what we both agreed on. If you don't have that written agreement in place, it turns into an issue. Likewise for your team members. If you've hired a VA or a web designer, or you have an online business manager, or whoever that is, right? And you don't have an agreement in place with them, you know, you need to have a contractor's agreement in place. It needs to be clear that they are working as a contractor, not as an employee for you. You know, it needs to be clear what exactly services they're providing. What is the rate you're paying them? If there's any kind of incentives or bonuses and such that come into place or into play, that needs to be written in this agreement too. You need to have confidentiality agreements in there. You need to have any, like, what is it? I can't think of the word right now. Conflict of interest. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Conflict of interest, saying that, you know, if they're doing whatever with you, or exclusivity or something, if that comes into place, that they can't take and use your materials and use them with other people or whatever that is. You also want to make sure you have something that's called a work for hire in place in your contractor agreements, right, with your team members, which basically means any of the work that they do for you, you will own the result of it. If you don't have a work for hire clause in your agreements, that essentially means that, say, for example, a graphic designer designs a logo for you. You may pay them to do the work. You're paying them for their time. But if you don't have a work for hire in there, they actually own that logo. They actually own that logo. Ah, that's a scary thing. That's a scary thing. You know, joint venture relationships. I do a ton of different training programs and such where I'll partner up with somebody. We'll do the program together. We always have a written agreement in place for that. And I just want to say to you, these aren't big fancy things either. Right? They don't have to be like 12-page legalese, whatever kind of agreements and such, right? You know, they can actually be pretty simple and straightforward. But of course, if you're ever in doubt, it's always, I highly recommend, you know, getting something reviewed by a lawyer, right? To make sure that it's covering all the bases of whatever that might be. There's lots of templates out there you can find online and so on for various types of agreements. But, you know, bottom line is this: I need you to honor these relationships. I need you to honor yourself and your own commitments, and I need you to honor the people that you're engaged with in your business. And if you don't have agreements in place already, here is me, you know, inviting you to do so, if you will. And I'll allow me to give you a little slap on the wrist. If you were like I was for many years and you just don't have these things in place, now's the time. Now's the time. You know, I really want to encourage you to do so. And if you resist it for some reason, if you're just like, no, I don't want to do it or something, pay attention to what comes up for you around that. You know, because if there's something deeper going on there, you may want to take a deeper look at it in whatever way, shape, or form that might be. You know, but this is just simply good business. It's just simply good business, and it's good relationships. It's good relationships, which is what good business is anyhow, really, when we think about it. So let me know how it goes, or if you have any questions or anything, by all means, you know, just post and share your comments here with this video. And until next time, it's Tina Forsyth. Take care. Have a great day. Bye now.